Okay, it's time for Right versus Left, and I have author and political commentator Emma Woolf back on the show for about the third or fourth time, and likewise Dennis MacShane. He's a former Labour MP, Minister of State for Europe. Look, we're going to get straight to it. Politics, we've seen what's happened over the past week or so. People are a little bit, I think, in this country, a bit fed up with politicians of all colours, really. But I don't think they're switching off from politics. I think it's almost become a form of entertainment, if I could say that, in this country, where people are looking on their phones, looking on the TV, looking at this great TV channel. So they're actually engaging with politics, in my opinion, but they're just fed up with politicians and the direction of travel in this country. What do you think? What do you think, Dennis?
I think it's perfectly fair. I mean, the trouble is when you ignore politics, never forget politics doesn't ignore you. And the difficulty is that I follow social media, I follow lots of different stations and different magazines, papers, but they're all one tonal. We've just lost the art. We used to have it in the Daily Telegraph, in the news pages, we used to have it in the Guardian, of some balance, of some give and take. Now it's all, hello, here's my megaphone, and these are the good people, and those are the bad people. We also don't have any really good, strong personalities anymore.
Well, thanks for that, Dennis. What do you reckon, Emma? No strong
in leadership positions.
No strong
Your day will come.
Look, I don't think people are switching off from politics. I think there's a sense of exhaustion. I think there's a sense of disillusionment. I think outside the Westminster bubble, there's a real sense that politics is not delivering real people for what they need in their real lives, the things they care about, the things that we have all said that we are concerned about: knife crime, immigration, things like that, poverty, cost of living, all those things. I think there is a sense in the country of exhaustion and despair that is not being delivered. I think people don't feel connected. I think it's kind of micro level, their local lives, and the macro. Yeah. So at the macro, you've got taxes soaring, you've got the NHS literally on the verge of breakdown. Then at the local level, you've got people's lives, their real lives. You've got unemployment in the local areas. You've got the high streets that are closing down. You've got potholes on the streets. You've got a sense that you can't get an appointment at your local GP, that you can't get your kids into decent schools. So it's kind of local and also on a larger scale.
See, I was one of those people, Dennis, Emma, back in 2015-16, I was just a normal bloke watching the TV, looking at Parliament, looking at the green benches and screaming at the screen. And then when we had the Brexit vote, and still they couldn't deliver on Brexit, and I'm thinking as a normal bloke, just an everyday bloke, looking, why can't you do the job that we employ you to do? And I know a lot of people, and I want to flip this back on the public as well a little bit, because a lot of the people saying I could do a better job than that. And then when you say, well, come and help deliver leaflets, get involved, join a political party, come and campaign, stand to be a councillor, whatever, or maybe an MP, they don't want to know, because it's a tough gig. It
is a tough gig, that's the thing. Lots of us want to be involved at that level, but it's time consuming. Yeah. People are actually struggling to work, to look after their kids, to put food on the table, to pay the bills. And it's kind of, is it apathy that they don't get involved?
Well, Dennis is shaking his head here, he's looking a little bit confused.
Only in the sense that, well before we were born, people were working 50-hour weeks, there were no weekends, they were working Saturdays, but they still found time on all parties to go out because it was important for the country. And I think the constant sneering at politicians, you cite, for example, Brexit not being delivered. Well, Prohibition was delivered in America. It was voted in 1917. They tried to deliver it, they couldn't. It turned into a disaster. Yep. And then America grew up. At some stage, we'll have to grow up and admit that cutting all trade links and banning everybody coming into Britain from Europe is not good for the nation.
Politics, Dennis, is about people. It's about people getting involved. It's about people airing their opinions and maybe campaigning for political parties, or even, sometimes people get on social media and get on Twitter and Instagram and they fire all these opinions off. And then we say, well, come and meet me, come and get involved. They don't want to know a lot of the time.
But it is about people, and I think when you lose that trust in politicians, I mean, look at the last, say, 3-4 years. People feel that since the pandemic, we were lied to, we were controlled, we were restricted. They've lost a lot of trust in our leaders, and that's really fundamental. There isn't respect for leaders in the same way that there used to be, say, Harold Wilson, Winston Churchill. I know they were difficult times, of course they were, and I agree with you 100%. It was much tougher back in the 50s. I don't buy this stuff about, it's harder for young people these days. Genuinely, I don't. But look at young people, let's go to that. We have a generation of people who are unemployed, who are anxious, who are signed off work, who are depressed, who are becoming becoming obese, all of that. And I think that is also linked to this addiction to screens and smartphones and people just being inside, signed off with anxiety disorders. I think there are really, really difficult problems in this country.
It is a problem, young people.
Really
Dennis.
sad.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, if I'm saying, if they actually then put on the radio in the morning or TV, and they hear the guys in power in the cabinet saying this is a world-beating economy, our education policies are best in the world, our healthcare policies, but we spend more on healthcare than anybody else in human history. And they say, why is this guy, this woman, talking absolute BS? And it'll be Labour's fault too before long, don't get me wrong. What I would say though is, we've seen the biggest participation by people of all ages, especially young people, in my lifetime, in the last few months on the question of Gaza. But they say that if you're pro-Palestinian, there isn't a single person over there, as you put it, Whitehall, Westminster, speaking for me. And my Jewish friends will say there's not a single person pointing out Hamas was a bunch of Jew killers and an evil organisation. And so they've come out, I was there last weekend, they come out weekend after weekend, filling the streets, and nobody is responding to them.
But let's go back to young people, Emma. You make a good point, Dennis, by the way. Back in the day, the 50s or 60s, whenever, I think more young people were more interested in politics, especially in my neck of the woods, because of industry. The industry was the coal mines, was the steelworks, was textiles, whatever. These were large nationalised industries. They had a large workforce, and there was closed shop unions. So everybody who worked in the pits where I worked had a stake in the Labour Party somewhere along the line because they paid their union subs. A few pence of that subs went to the Labour Party to train candidates, to produce election materials, etc. So when it comes to election time, in my year, it was pretty nailed on which way you was going to vote. But at least you was going to vote because each week you paid your union subs. That went to Labour Party, and hey presto, a bloke you used to work with down the pit was your local MP.
Yeah, fine. But you had a sense of local community. You had a sense of community cohesion. You were part of something. You were talking to people. You were out in the streets. You were working with other people. We don't have that anymore. We live in completely isolated societies. I mean, I live in central London. I don't even know my neighbours, and I've lived where I live for 15 or so years.
Wow.
Many people
Vanessa,
don't.
in that time too, every woman was staying at home waiting to sort of scrub her minor husband's back and preparing food. There's been a revolution in allowing women now to speak and be part of society, which wasn't the case then. But I tell you one thing the Tories had going for them in the 1950s, Lee, I think you're probably too young to appreciate it.
Thanks for that.
That was simply
Dennis.
that the Young Conservatives were the biggest social group in Britain, with about 1 million people, and you went there to meet people of the other sex. Now, maybe politics has to get just a bit more down to basics.
No, I come back to the
like
internet. I come back to the internet. Nowadays, if you want to meet friends, if you want to meet your potential partner, all of that, it's all online. And it's not about male versus female. It's really, really not. It's about a general decline in standard. It's about general decline in behaviour, general decline in discipline. Bring back, what's it called?
The rope.
No, bring...
Oh my God, we're talking about public hanging now.
Conscription.
Conscription.
Bring back conscription. Give young people something to do for a couple of years. Get them training, get them discipline. Give young men and young women, but young men especially, get the conscription sergeants out on the high streets. Give them a sense of something to do.
The old drill sergeants.
Why not? Why not? Young men absolutely
Dennis,
loved
did you do
it.
national
Give them a
service?
salary, give them a career.
No, but I did do the school cadet force. I was a company sergeant major. I was a natural giver of orders even then, barking at other school children. And I made that point once in the House of Commons, saying the House of Commons should have a combined cadet force for all MPs to get some discipline back into that place.
Absolutely.
Discipline back in Parliament.
Discipline back into Parliament, discipline back into our nurseries and our schools and all of it.
But not.
I have a 3-year-old, and most days I say to him, pull your socks up. Stop whining,
And does it pull his socks up? So it's not working, Emma, is it? It's not working. Dennis, Emma, thanks. That was brilliant. I will come back on the rope comment. We're not having a debate on
flogging and hanging
on this show. Well, not this week anyway.